Hi there and welcome to Paris. It is the time of the year for the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, and this is the Equidia International preview for the 16 runners which will be taking place in this year's race. I have with me the French racing expert Katherine Ford. And Katherine, different this year because we're not going to Longchamp, or if we are, we won't see a race.
Absolutely. Longchamp is currently being rebuilt, so we're heading up north of Paris to Chantilly, to the magnificent racecourse and training centre of Chantilly for this race, in front of the great stables, the Chateau of Chantilly, so it's going to be very picturesque. And from a racing point of view, it'll be slightly more of a test of stamina with a steeper incline up to the finishing post of the 2,400 metres, so that could change things.
So Katherine is going to look after the French horses. Tim Carroll is with me as well. He's going to look after the international raiders. You got the best of the draw because the internationals look to be better than the locals this year, I think, Tim.
Yeah, they certainly do on paper. With Postponed, who of course is the best horse in the world at the moment, over 2,400 metres. Then we've got this Japanese raider, Makahiki, and a few others. Ballydoyle have the three runners in. The internationals certainly seem to have a strong hand this year, Ian.
So let's see what we have for you then. It is the Qatar-sponsored Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, over 1.5 miles or 2,400 metres this year at Chantilly on Sunday. It's for 3-year-olds and upwards. The only horses excluded are geldings. The prize is €5 million. That's about 8 million Aussie dollars and 5.6 million US. So this year we have 16 horses declared for the race. Let's take a check on those 16. They are New Base Trained by Andre Fabre. The favourite will be Postponed. Migua, Highland Reel, One Foot in Heaven, The Grey Gatsby, a former French Derby winner. Silver Wave, Christophe Soumillon picks up the ride on that. Order of St George is better known as a stayer. Third run in the race for Siljan Saga. Found the English Derby winner Harzand, his pacemaker Vedavani. Talismanic from Japan, Makahiki, Savoir Vive, and a 3-year-old filly in the left hand. I'm going to ask Katherine to tell us now what sort of horse we should be looking for before we look at the individual 16.
Well, Ian, we'll have a look at the trends over the last 20 years of this Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. We'll see that 15 of the last 20 winners had won their previous race, so don't discount a horse that was maybe beaten last time out. The Prix Niel has produced the most winners, 9 in total, but most of those were in the period 20 years to 10 years ago. It's been a while since the Prix Niel has produced an Arc winner. The Vermeer's done very well in recent years, notably. 3-year-olds dominating with 15 3-year-olds, 4 4-year-old winners, only 1 5-year-old, so that could make things difficult for the favourite Postponed. He's trying to go against the trends. Males outnumbering the females, although fillies have been in form in recent years. French doing well in recent years. Andre Fabre, 7 wins, the record breaker in so many parts of French racing. And then the best jockeys, Frankie Dettori, Thierry Jarnet and Olivier Pellier, with 4 wins each. 2 of those are going to have a chance to try and win a 5th. That's Olivier Pellier on Migua. Should be difficult for him. And Frankie Dettori aboard Order of St George.
OK, so, as Katherine told us, Andre Fabre is the man you have to look at, and we're going to start with number 1, New Bay, who is trained by him and has been one of his winners of the French Derby, the Prix du Jockey Club, in the past. And, Katherine, he was 3rd in the Arc 12 months ago. He hasn't had that many races this year, but he still looks a good horse. Exactly.
He's looking a good horse, and he's looking particularly good at this moment. I think Andre Fabre, we saw on the stats there, he's the record breaker of winners trainer-wise in this field, and he knows how to bring a horse on top form for this first weekend in October. Here's the horse galloping up at Chantilly on the Les Aigles training track on Tuesday morning. A really pleasing piece of work he put in there under Raphael Marcelli, who's a kind of a journeyman jockey here in France, but rides most of New Bay's serious work. I think he could be an outsider to watch. A lot of the horses in Chantilly had trouble with the virus at the beginning of part of the season, which maybe explains why he's been slow to come to hand. He won a small race, a small Group 2 race in Deauville in the summer, then put up a decent performance in the Irish Champion Stakes, so definitely one for the shortlist.
He looks like, Tim, the horses that ran prominently in the Irish Champion Stakes, he is the one that did best. So he might have been beaten there, but it was a good run.
Yeah, he also drew on the outside that day. He had to do a little bit of work early on. I think the thing I note about this horse, even though he won the Prix Niel last year on soft ground, the connections have always been adamant that he's better on top of the ground, and it was actually yielding ground in Ireland. He's only had the 1 run on good ground this year. Admittedly, it was in a fairly weak Group 3 event, but he won that and won it on the bridle. It looks like he's going to get good ground on Sunday, and that being the case, I think he'll run well. I think it's also worth noting he's got better with every run this season as well.
OK, that is New Bay, probably the main local hope. Now we move on to the favourite, who is number 2 on the card. Postponed. He's a raider from the United Kingdom. It's going to fall to an Aussie to talk about him, though. He's a good horse, this, and he's in great order.
He's an incredibly good horse at the moment, but I know the 5-year-olds don't have a good record. I think it's something like 5 or 6 winners in the last 80 years. But to counter that argument, I would say that most 5-year-olds that have gone around in the Arc are on a bit of a downward curve, whereas this horse has reached his peak this season. He's won everything. He was so impressive when he won the Shima Classic in Dubai. He had Duramente in behind. Then he came out, he won the Coronation. He had found nearly 5 lengths in behind. And then he won the Jumpmont as well. He certainly ticks all the right boxes.
This is him, yellow jacket. You see him in front here, winning in Dubai in March. Would that be a question mark for you? I mean, he was obviously in great form in March. We're now just about to get to October.
No, I think A, he thrives on racing, and secondly, he's had a light campaign. He had a warm-up run in Dubai, then the Shima Classic, the Coronation, then of course the Jumpmont. He's only had the 4 runs, so I don't think that's a problem at all. I think we just see there as well a horse that reopposes Highland Real back in 4th. He beat those horses well on that particular evening in Dubai. He's in great form at the moment, and as I said at the top of the show, Ian, without a shadow of a doubt, according to the ratings, he's the best 1.5 mile horse in the world. So
all the locals have got into beat, Catherine, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's the one that presents the most guarantees, as Tim said. I really liked his race at York. He showed a good turn of foot that day. Yeah, he's got it all going for him, and he's been going all year, but he had a bit of a break in the summer. I mean, albeit because he was slightly under the weather. The horses of Roger Varian were under a cloud, so he didn't run in the King George. So he hasn't been going all year. Yeah, I think this time last year I wasn't a big fan, but I think he's a leading. He's going to be the horse to beat.
OK, that is the horse who's going to go a favourite, number 2, Postponed. We'll quickly go to number 3, Migua, who's going to be a big-priced horse, Catherine. And this is a big step up in class.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he won a small race at St. Cloud recently. He's running basically because his owners want to have a horse in the field. So we'll pass on to the next one, Ian.
Which is number 4, Highland Real, which we're throwing over to Tim. We're going to see a piece of form from a very decent horse in Hong Kong from last December. The one slight problem is he's met a lot of these in the past, and more often than not, 1 or 2 of them have finished ahead of him.
Yeah, he's won a Group 1 level on 2 occasions, and both times in the King George this year and in the Hong Kong Vase when he had Flintshire in behind. He's done it from the front. I don't think he's going to have that luxury here. I'd actually argue he's probably better over 1.25 miles. This is him winning the Hong Kong Vase, and you can see he's right up on the front end all the way. That's Flintshire on his outside. So I suppose when you look at it from that perspective, it's a very strong form line, but he has met Postponed a few times, or twice now, and he's been well beaten by him on both occasions, including last time out in the Jumpmont. He's a very nice horse, this horse, but he's one I'm prepared to take on Sunday.
OK, it's a relatively decent price at the moment and a top quality performer, but looks like he might find 1 or 2 too good for him. I think, Catherine, that will also occur to a horse called One Foot in Heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd asked me kind of 4 months ago, he was maybe my dark horse for the race, but he hasn't. He won the Grand Prix de Chantilly, so on this course and distance back in June, but he was very disappointing in the Prix Latterly. Alain Duroy-Dupré said he'd had a physical problem in that race, which he'd managed to put right, but I think he's here just more for the fun day out than with any hope of winning. OK, the Grey Gatsby is the next horse we move on to, who one of his best races of his career, Tim, was at this course, although it is just a little while, despite some good runs, since he won a race. Yeah, well, actually, it hasn't won for over 2 years. It was the Irish Champion Stakes a couple of years ago, and he is definitely better over 1.25 miles. They've missed a few runs with him this year simply because they've been looking for good ground. I think that's the only thing in his favour. He's a likeable horse, he's a popular horse, but he's 1.25 miles horse, and his rating has dropped from 127 to 115. I'd like to see him do well, but I certainly couldn't flag him up, Ian.
OK, now on to quite a long-priced one, but he won one of the trials for this. This is Silver Wave. He's a French horse. Catherine, I'm throwing him at you. Now, this, trained by Pascal Barry, and he's done very well this season. Yeah, absolutely. He joined Pascal Barry for this season. Previously, he was trained in the west of France by Alain Quetil, and he seems to have gone from strength to strength. He won the Prix Latterly. He won the Grand Prix de St. Cloud earlier in the season. He's a true 1.5 mile horse. Here he is in the pink colours in this just 4 runners in the Prix so he's going to beat the German horse Ito here, the horse that's in the lead. We've also got One Foot in Heaven, who's trailing
in last, who's going to line up again on Sunday. But for me, Silver Wave is a really interesting contender. 4-year-olds, he was quite backward as a 3-year-old, as I said, trained in the west of France. And Pascal Barry is really quite hot on his chances. One of our teams spoke to him earlier in the week in Chantilly, so we'll listen to what Pascal Barry's got to say.
I think Silver Wave is well. I think he's very good. He's sure to finish in the first 4 and could even win. This has always been his owner's objective. Silver Wave came to Chantilly with the 2016 Arc as his target. He was very backward, so he made a lot of progress between 3 and 4. He's very big and strong and has a lovely movement, and now he's at the top of his game. He ran well in the Prix Gannet, he relaxed nicely and showed a great turn of foot. That race was over 2,100 metres and it was a good performance. His next race in the Prix d'Ispahan wasn't quite so good. The ground was very testing and the Japanese horse took the lead very quickly. Silver Wave found himself a bit far back, but he finished strongly in the straight. Then in the Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud, the ground was good and he had the perfect run in the race with plenty of pace. On that day, he was head and shoulders above the rest.
Le cheval ce jour-là était vraiment au-dessus des autres. Il y a beaucoup de très bons chevaux au départ.
There are a lot of good horses in the race, but Silver Wave is well, and he ran well in the Prix Foix. He likes Chantilly, and if he gets a good trip, why not? He has a great 4-year-old season, he's on form, he's running over the perfect distance and ridden by a top jockey. If things go his way, he can put up a great performance in the Arc.
So Pascal Barry, pretty bullish there on the chances of Silver Wave, and I'm quite impressed listening to Pascal Barry because he's not someone who's usually overconfident, so I would like to trust him and think that Silver Wave's going to finish in the first 4.
OK. I'd have to say that it was obviously my voice on Pascal there, and I am on this, which is why it sounds really upbeat. Now on to Order of St George. I'm going to throw this one to Tim. Now, we have an Ascot Gold Cup winner, which is a lot further. It's a 4,000-metre race. This is 2,400 metres, but 4, I think, have done it in the last 30 or 40 years. One of them has been successful in both. So we can't discount him just because he looks like he stays further.
No, look, I think you're right, Ian. If we go back to Westerner, he ran so well in this race as well. He was second in 2005. He won the Ascot Gold Cup. Marion Bard, he won this race a few years ago now, but he won this race. Of course, he finished 5th at an Ascot Gold Cup. I think it's possible you can do it, but I'd be a little bit surprised if Order of St George was to win this. In a way, I'd like to think that he can't win it because the Arc itself, I love the race. I think it's the greatest race in the world. And I think if a horse that hasn't run below 1.5 miles since he won his maiden over 2 years ago can come out and beat the best 2,400-metre horses in the world, that would worry me a little bit. And when you have a look at the rider bookings, Ryan Moore obviously gets the first choice. He's on found, whereas Frankie Dettori has been picked up for Order of St George. I think he'll run well, but I think he'll find a few too good on the day.
He did get beat the other day in the Irish St Leger. We're going to show you, in fact, his victory, though, just over 12 months ago when he wins by 11 lengths or so. This, of course, Irish St Leger is 1.75 miles, so 2,800 metres. I would imagine Mr. Dettori will have him up there because there's no point riding him for a turn of foot.
No, exactly right. He hasn't got a turn of foot, and that gets back to my point. Even Westerner, I know he was a stayer, but he actually had a turn of foot. He could be trained to have a turn of foot. This horse doesn't. I think you need a turn of foot to win the Arc, especially on good ground.
He's drawn number 16, so he'll be able to run further than the rest anyway.
OK, that is Order of St George. He's trying to do something that Levmos was the last horse to do in 1967, win the Ascot race and this. Siljan Saga, Catherine, 3rd run in the race. Not many horses in their lifetime get to run in 3 arcs, and is getting closer year on year, admittedly.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a really popular French mare, 6-year-old French mare, trained in the centre of France by Jean-Pierre Gauvin. They're having a fun day out, basically. She's got some decent performances on her, best notably winning the Grand Prix de Deauville last year, but she would have preferred softer ground, so a real huge outsider here.
OK, one that's not a huge outsider is the Irish filly Found, who has run in 13 Group 1 races. She's only been out of the frame in 1 of those. But, Tim, your task is to explain why that was last year's Arc, which was a great race, but she did get well beaten in it.
She was well beaten, but she got into a little bit of trouble. She never would have bothered the first two in the race. I think she probably should have ended up around the third and the fourth, which was a Trev, somewhere around there. But I'm not convinced that her best trip is 2,400 metres, especially a test in 2,400 metres. When you have a look at her record at this trip, 4 starts, 1 win, a couple of placings, and that win was in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, wonderful piece of form because she had Golden Horn in behind, but Keeneland is 7.5 furlongs in circumference, the turf track. It's a small, tight turning track. I don't know if this will play to her strengths. If I'm wrong, I'll happily be wrong because she's a wonderful filly, and I love the way she turns up every single race and puts in, but I don't know if 2,400 metres at Chantilly is going to play to her strengths.
We'll have a look at a piece of form for her, which is her most recent one, which was second in Ireland in the Irish Champion Stakes. We also see New Bay in this and Harzand. It was a race that it paid Tim to come from off the pace, which she does in the blue and orange, but just Almanzor gets her.
Yeah, and she got into just a little bit of trouble at the top of the straight. I think the right horses obviously won the race, but I think you can tack a little bit on. But this kind of makes my point. This is a 1.25 mile race, and this is what I think her trip is, because she's got a nice turn of foot. She's a lovely filly. She does everything right in the races. But here at Chantilly, that big long run in, that steep climb, I don't think that will play to her strengths. And I really like the filly. As I said, Ian, I'd love to be proven wrong because she's run second in 9 Group 1s, which is incredible. As I said, she turns up every time and she puts in, but 2,400 metres here at Chantilly, I really don't think that's going to help her.
OK, that is Found, one of the Aidan O'Brien runners. Another raider from Ireland, but trained by Dermot Weld, is Harzand, who was beaten in the race we just watched, the Irish Champion Stakes, but he is the winner of both the derbies in England and Ireland so far this year. It sounds like a very legitimate excuse because, well, it sounds like you just had to watch him after 100 yards whenever it happened at to Leopardstown last time. He got cut into and he was never travelling after that, and it was shorter than his best winning form. Well,
he's definitely a 2,400 metre horse, and regardless of how strong or otherwise the 3-year-olds are this year, if you can come out and win both derbies, you're a high-quality colt. And we know Dermot Weld, he doesn't wax lyrical about his horses for no reason, but he's been very bullish about this horse and his ability. I think you've got to put the line through his last run. As you said, he got into trouble, he got galloped on, he came out of that bruised and lame, so I think we can forget about that run. But the thing that worries me now is he's had an interrupted preparation, and the Arc is not the sort of race you want to go to on an interrupted preparation. And the other thing I would mention is Dermot Weld said before the Derby, if the ground didn't have enough give in it, he would pull him out. Well, it's going to be pretty firm ground, or at least good ground on Sunday, so I don't know if that's going to play to his strengths either.
OK, oh, yeah. I wouldn't mind the ground too much. English firm ground versus French firm ground, there's no comparison. These two then, Found and Harzand, both top quality horses. One comes here after a very good second. The other one was injured last time during the race. They both got good chances.
Absolutely. I think Tim said it all really about Harzand. What concerns me as well is the interrupted preparation. He was my favourite for the Arc following his win in the Epsom Derby, and then the Irish Derby kind of confirmed that. But you know, I would have liked to have seen him not get injured in the Irish Champion Stakes, because even if it was just a minor injury, it'll have slowed him down for a day or two, and his performance in the race wasn't good enough for me to permit any question marks in his preparation after that, and the firmish, well, good ground is also a concern for me.
And here he is,
yep.
The second of his classic victories at the Curragh during the summer, Harzand winning there. So move on to the next one on the card, which you can be brief on, Catherine, because he's the pacemaker, isn't he?
Yeah, Vedavani is there to set the pace for Harzand. He's going to come out of stall number 1, so perfect positioning there for the leader, but we can expect him to be fading in the straight.
And now we move on to Talismanic, who's a Godolphin-owned horse trained by the king of the race, Andre Fabre. A massive step up in quality for this horse, Catherine, although he has won races and won them quite easily. Yeah,
well, his last race was very good. He won very easily a listed race at St. Cloud over the 1.5 miles, and he put up a decent enough performance in the Prix du Jockey Club to finish 4th behind Almanzor that day. He just kind of got a bit outstayed at the end of it. You know, definitely a secondary chance trained by Andre Fabre, so you've got to maybe consider him briefly, but I think we'll look over him.
OK, I think we can probably afford to lose if he's the one that wins. Now, on to the hope from Japan. They've been trying for quite a few years to win this race. This is Makahiki. Only had 6 runs in his career, has won 5 of those, and he did win one of the trial races, but he didn't win it like a very good horse, if you know what I mean. He didn't cruise there and go past them. Christophe Lemaire had to be, you know, quite forceful to get him there.
You're right, but he also won it like a horse that might have only been 80% tuned up. He's a high-quality colt. Let's not forget the 3-year-olds in Japan this year, D Majesty, Satono Diamond, Leonte. They're a very good crop, and he's the best of them. He ran second in the Guineas over there, came from a mile back. He won the Derby. Again, he came from a long way back, and he ran into a little bit of traffic as well. I really like this horse. Look, when I first watched this trial, the Prix Niel, I was a little bit underwhelmed as well. But having watched it a couple of times now, having read a couple of quotes, having heard a couple of things, I actually now think it's a very good trial. When they turned up with his sire, Deep Impact, a few years back, I think they had him over the top early on and they didn't send him around in the trial. I think they've done the right thing. I think it's a major positive that Christophe Lemaire has already got an association with this horse. I'm making an assumption here, but I think he would be advising the connections the best way to prepare this horse for an arc based on his local knowledge. OK, well, that leads me very nicely into the man himself, Christophe Lemaire, who's been over here for a few weeks for the preparation for Makahiki in the Arc. Our team caught up with him at the Chantilly Gallops earlier this week.
I was not surprised by the way of the Prix Niel has been run, but Makahiki was very professional. He was very relaxed during the race, and he had 3 lengths to pass the horses, and he did it very well with a nice acceleration. We kept improving the speed until the winning post. I was very happy with the way he reacted in that kind of race. It was a nice experience, I think. I was very happy with him today. He was, as usual, very relaxed during the work. Coming to the stretch, he really reacted very well. He passed his sparring partner very easily, and then he just relaxed in front. He used to do that. I know him, so I tried to make him work a little bit. But after the work, he was very relaxed and bracing very well. He recovered very well as well. Really pleased with the way he improved from the Prix Niel.
And how much excitement is there in Japan about this attempt at the Arc de Triomphe?
Big excitement. This year the Japanese will be able to bet on the race. It's already a very famous race, but having a Japanese horse in the race and be able to bet on it makes the event much bigger than before.
How much would it mean to you to go and win this race for the Japanese?
It would be very special, actually. Now I live in Japan. I've been there for 15 years every winter, so I have a nice history with this country. So to win the Arc with a Japanese horse would be very special, and I would be able to give back a little bit of what Japan gave me. So I would be very proud to win.
Christophe Lemaire, who rides Makahiki on Sunday afternoon. You were obviously down there. What did you get? Were they confident, hopeful? What's the news in the Makahiki
varying.
camp?
I think Christophe Lemaire is quite confident. Some of the Japanese media I was speaking to are slightly less confident. I don't think there's quite as much excitement around Makahiki as there was in such as Deep Impact a few years ago, or even Orfèvre when he tried to come back and win it. Obviously, he's only a 3-year-old, so he hasn't quite got that big following yet, although, as Christophe said, the Japanese will be betting on the race, so a lot of interest in that and a lot of hope, because I mean we've seen all the near misses with the Japanese. It's time they went and won the race, and I think they're learning year on year, and as Tim said, having Christophe Lemaire on side, it's got to be a big advantage. OK, Tim, one final question about this horse. His wins in Japan, the ground probably has been like a road. It will no longer be that, or will never be that fast at Chantilly.
Yeah, I don't think the ground will be a problem for him. He's a lovely mover. When you have a look at his pedigree, Deep Impact went on either. I don't think that'll be an issue at all. I also think this steep climb here at Chantilly will really play to his strengths as well. I think this year's Arc, you need a horse that potentially, obviously needs to run a strong 2400, but potentially can run a little bit further, and a little bit again, like his sire. I think he'll run further than 2400. OK, now on to Savoir-Vivre. Number 15, isn't he, on the race card. Truly International won this.
Yeah, trained by a Frenchman in Germany, ridden by a German-born jockey who's based in England, won the Grand Prix de Deauville, which is his best performance. 3-year-old colt. After winning the Grand Prix de Deauville, they were saying that he's unlikely to run in the Arc because they thought he was still a little bit green. They obviously changed their minds, deciding to come and take their chance. I think he'll have to be a lot better than anything he's shown so far. Even though his second place in the German Derby was a decent performance, we see him here in the Grand Prix de Deauville. There was only 4 runners that day and there was no pace. So he got sent out in front. He was ridden by Maxime Guyon that day and he was looking around him all over the place. We can see Erupt there finishing in the Niarchos colours, and that's Siljan Saga who's going to see again. But he put up a decent performance, but not really looking like an Arc winner there.
OK, that is Siljan, there's Savoir Vivre. And so the last one is the 3-year-old filly, Left Hand. Now, she, from the middle of June onwards, has looked like a different horse to what she did before that in her career.
Absolutely. I mean, she put up a very good performance at 50-1 to finish second to La Cressonnière in the Prix de Diane with the cheek pieces on that day. Then Carlos Lafamparias has admitted he forgot to declare them next time out. She went on to win anyway, but not impressively in Deauville. And then she won the Prix Vermeil, so over the course and distance 3 weeks ago, to become one of the talking horses in the race. We've heard an awful lot about this filly in recent days, trained by Carlos Lafamparias, ridden by Maxime Guyon for the Wertheimer brothers. You know, if you're looking for an outsider, she could well fit the bill. She loves this distance. She's improving, and with the cheek pieces on, she seems to stick down to her task. And the 3-year-old fillies have that weight advantage, which just proves so important in recent years.
So there's Left Hand. She's improving at the right time of year.
I think she's got better with every run, and she's certainly all about 2,400 metres. I actually like her. I've sort of put her in my top 3. I think she's a nice each-way play in the race, and as Catherine said, she gets that 11-pound pull in the weights from the older males as well. I think that's very handy. OK, those are the 16 runners then for this year's Arc. If we haven't persuaded you or advised you or tipped you up which one to be on yet, now is the moment for the 2 experts to put their reputation on the line. Of course, it's got to be ladies first. But what is going to win, Catherine?
It's not very original, but Postponed is my selection for the win. Then Makahiki, I think, well, the heart's going with Makahiki, and I would love to see him, and I think he's done everything right so far. And then my third choice would be Silver Wave, because Pascal Barry, I'm impressed by his optimism and confidence.
Tim?
I think Japan can finally win the race here with Makahiki, the 3-year-old colt. I think he's a very likeable sort of 3-year-old. And the other thing I will mention about him, unlike a few other Japanese horses we've seen, he's nice and relaxed. He's actually well behaved on the gallops and on race day. I think he can win the race. I think Postpone has to be the danger. And I've put Left Hand in for third. I do think that she is capable of hitting the frame here at a big price, Ian.
OK, thank you both very much. Remember to join us then live on Sunday afternoon, not only the Arc, the big sprint races, the 2-year-old races as well. It will be a fantastic programme this year. For the first time in 2016, it comes live from Chantilly. The very best of luck with your selections, and thank you for joining us.